Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're talking about one of the most fundamental rules in the entire legal system. It's the idea that before a court can even begin to hear a case, it has to have the right to be there in the first place. You've got to have the right key for the right door.
So just imagine this for a second. A legal fight that drags on for more than 20 years. You've got lawyers arguing, witnesses testifying, tons of evidence, and finally, a judgment. But what if, after all that, it turns out the court should never have heard the case at all? What happens then? That's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
All right, let's get right into it. Before any of the drama can start, before a single argument is made, every single court has to ask itself one critical question. Do I actually have the authority to decide this? This, right here, is the question of jurisdiction.
So what exactly is jurisdiction? Well, think of it like this. It is the court's official ticket to the game. If a court doesn't have that ticket, it can't get on the field. It can't look at the evidence, it can't listen to the arguments, and it definitely can't declare winner. It is the absolute first step. No ticket, no game, period.
Okay, so to really get why this matters so much, we're going to look at a real-world case that honestly takes this principle to the absolute extreme. It's a story that kicks off with a simple job appointment and then takes over 2 decades to resolve.
Let's just walk through this timeline because it's pretty wild. It all starts back in 1992. Mr. Vachharajani gets a job. A month later, the university cancels it, so he sues. But now look at that fourth point. Just a few months later, the university does a complete 180 and he starts the job anyway. And he keeps that job for decades, even retiring in 2013, all while his original lawsuit is just slowly grinding its way through the system. The final judgment doesn't even come out until 21 years after he first filed. A whole career passes before this is all settled.
You know, the original fight was pretty simple. He just wanted a court to say that canceling his job was illegal. But the irony here is just, wow. Even though he got the job back almost immediately and worked a full career, the legal machinery from that first fight just kept on churning for 2 entire decades.
And right here, this is where the whole thing gets a major plot twist. Because while this case was crawling along, something happened on the outside that completely changed the rules of the game for disputes like this one.
Yep, this. In 1993, just 1 year into the lawsuit, this new law comes into effect. Now, it might look like just some boring legal text, but trust me, this act would end up being the one single thing that decided this entire decades-long case.
And this slide, this says it all. Section 13 of that new law was crystal clear. It literally says that regular civil courts, like the one where the case was filed, no longer had the power, no longer had the jurisdiction to handle these university employee issues. That power was officially moved somewhere else.
So what did this new law really do? Why even create it? Well, it set up a brand new, specialized court just for these kinds of cases. It's kind of like if you have a heart problem, you don't go to a general doctor, you go to a cardiologist, right? This law created an expert forum, gave it the exclusive power to decide, and said its decisions were final. It basically put up a big no entry sign for all the other courts.
And that brings us to the finish line. After 21 long years, the case finally makes it to the High Court. But after all that time, the court wasn't focused on who was right or wrong way back in 1992. Nope. Its focus was on something way more fundamental.
This was it. This was the one question that mattered. Since that new law had stripped the original court of its power, could any decision it made actually be valid? Could it even look at the facts, the merits of the case, if it never really had a ticket to the game to begin with?
And the answer from the High Court was a clear, loud, and absolute no. This right here is the golden rule. It's the big takeaway. The court ruled that if you don't have jurisdiction, you are powerless. You cannot look at the evidence, you cannot hear arguments, and you sure can't issue a judgment that means anything. The doors are locked, the game is over before it starts. This table just lays it out perfectly. Look at the left column, a court with jurisdiction. Everything it does is valid, legal, and its decisions are binding. Now look at the right, a court without jurisdiction. Everything it does is invalid. Any judgment it issues is what's called a legal nullity, which is just a fancy way of saying it's completely void. It's as if it never even happened.
So you might be asking, why is the system so intense about this, right? Why throw out 21 years of work over this one technical rule? Well, because this rule isn't just a technicality. It's one of the pillars of a fair and functioning justice system.
Getting jurisdiction right is absolutely crucial. It's what prevents courts from wasting years of time and millions in taxpayer money, like we saw here. It makes the whole process predictable. It ensures that cases get to the right expert judges who actually know the subject. And at the end of the day, it's what allows legal disputes to finally, truly, come to an end.
So the next time you hear about some big court ruling, before you even start to think about who won or who lost, just take a second and ask yourself that first most important question of all. Did that court even have a ticket to the game? Because as we've just seen, if they didn't, nothing else matters. Thanks for watching.